Hey guys, welcome to Create a Place podcast. Today I'm here with Gilbert Broco. He's president of CI Group all throughout the Southeast. They are a contract furniture dealer, and Gilbert has a great perspective on not just the furniture industry, but also culture and making his clients and ours successful. Stay tuned. Hey, Gilbert.
Hey.
Thanks so much for being on Create a Place. I'm glad that you had an opportunity to come and talk with me today. We've most recently been working on a project together for Tampa Bay Business and Wealth magazine. That was a lot of fun.
It was.
So I thought this is a perfect opportunity to get you in and talk to you because not only, are you president, one of our major furniture dealers in town, Furniture Partners, for us as a design firm, but you are very tuned into workplace strategy and culture and everything that surrounds that. You've done some articles, which I really, enjoyed.
Thanks.
And I think you just bring some really great perspective because you have a design background, you have a multicultural background, you have a lot to offer to the role, and you definitely are a big part of our community. So thanks for being here.
No,
and
it's
I'm
an honor.
talking about, some fun things.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited to be part of it. Thank you. It's really an honor to be with you today. Yeah, I've been following your podcast and it's really fun. So looking forward to it.
I keep finding all these secret fans. It's hard to tell sometimes, because not everybody likes and shares and all that. But I do love to hear about it, out in the wild. That is most satisfying for me.
Yeah.
Even people without, outside of our industry that say, oh, I shared that with this nurse friend of mine who really could use some help with her team, that makes me feel great, because that's what I'm here for. I'm here to bridge this gap between all these conversations of workplace and future of work and, leadership and employee experience. It's all very confusing, I think, to people that are not in our industry. We talk about it all the time,
Yeah.
But outside of that, it's a little challenging. So I'm glad that we're here, to help people through that.
Yeah.
But just to start off, give us a little bit of your background, where you came from, your origin story and how that brought you, and how that influences, your role at CI Group as president and how you service your team and your clients.
Sure. So I born and raised in Puerto Rico. In the 80s and 90s, which was a lot of fun, right?
Oh, yeah.
Being from, an island, small island, the culture itself, it's very rich because it's an influence between Spaniards, colonizers, African slaves, the native Indian Tainos, and then being a Commonwealth of the United States for over 100 years, the influence of the United States itself in it. Even though it's an 100 by 35 mile island, it's rich in culture, right?
Such a high concentration
Of people, right? And then my classroom was not everyone looking alike. My friends were black next to the redhead, next to the blonde one, next to the brown skin. So diversity was always part of it. My mom was like an extreme big influence in my life as a very creative person. As a kid, I would be laying tile, building concrete block walls, building birdhouses, pottery, you name it.
Love the hands-on. That's feeds the soul.
The best, the absolute best. So all of that, and the culture itself of Puerto Rico, which is, a very unique in a sense of you're always learning from different people. You're going through a lot of situations, but turning them in opportunities. Very community and family centric. Yeah. Your neighbors are your tios and tias. The uncles and cousins are running across the street, and you're not blood related, but they're family.
It's your village,
right?
Your family. Right. Yeah.
So, that definitely has defined me, and I bring that in as a designer and as a business leader. That community-centered, human-centric approach. As a little kid, I would be looking for like the Saturday newspaper in Puerto Rico, which had all the construction parts, and in that section, I will cut out all the models and renderings, tape them in a notebook, and then make notes of what I liked and what I would do better in the design.
You're so reflective that early. That's amazing.
I know. And since I was 6, I thought I was going to be an architect. I knew I was going to be an architect. That's the only thing that I was thinking of. Interior design wasn't really in my mind. It wasn't really known that well during that time. So I was always leaning towards the creative part of building itself, something which was architecture.
Yeah.
Went to architecture school in Puerto Rico, graduated there, and started working in architecture under some architects in Puerto Rico, and found myself being drawn more to the interior side, where I felt that I could be creative in a bigger scale. In architecture, the long process of designing a building, going through all the rules and regulations and working with the engineers and all that, it's a lot of bureaucracy and a small part of the creative side that made me be energized, right?
Yeah.
So moving towards interior design was a natural way for me to then find the right niche for me. Worked a few years there in Puerto Rico, and then decided to move to the United States, moved to Jacksonville, Florida. I had never worked in contract furniture, but I got an interview at a dealership. I had just moved, was a 20-something-year-old. I lied through my entire interview. I said that I said that I had done some workspaces in Puerto Rico and named a few names of manufacturers that I had searched before the interview.
Very resourceful of you, Gilbert.
So it was a Friday. They gave me a job to start on Monday. I left the interview, went to Barnes and Nobles, and bought a book about office space and learning what the pedestals and cantilevers and all those parts were.
That's amazing.
Just started and was able to have a good group of people that helped me, a good group of designers in the industry that helped me around. And then there, 5 years after, when CI Group was opening their third office, they in Jacksonville, they hired me as a designer there. And quickly, as the company was growing, was able to grow with it. There was a lot of opportunities as they continued to add more offices and add more employees. I saw that a lot of the way that things were done in general were very siloed. So I, as part of bringing back from my culture of thinking the community way, finding ways of uniting the departments and locations in the company, and finding common ground to have a solid brand of what CI Group was, right? And what had been created. Had 8-9 positions in the company, worked as head of the design.
As the best leaders do.
Yes.
You have to know all of it.
I think it's key. Yes. You have to touch all the areas to fully understand. Each department, each person in a project is extremely important for the success of the overall. There's no more important or less important parts. So, being able to work with the design department, with the operations, sales, and then finally 2 years ago, then becoming the president of the company and business partner with Drew Marshall. So
congratulations on that. And I know you've been huge in helping him to formulate and to maintain that culture, and it shows. It's very strong, in our community.
Thank you.
But I think that's a really great segue to talk about a lot of the designers that are on the dealership side are actual interior designers.
Yes.
Most of them are licensed. Some of them are even architects.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think, like we had talked about, earlier, before the interview here, that's such a big misconception, I think, and as an interior designer and, as a business leader and, Create & Co. and we do full architecture interior design, we don't feel threatened by you. So I think maybe that's part of what happens in the industry is that there's a certain level of, oh no, you're going to come in and try to do my design job. But I'm here to say that we like to work with you as a partner. Right. You are the experts, and knowing that most of the folks that are doing the work of, the furniture design are also trained interior designers actually makes me feel a lot better, because I know that expertise runs deep, and you're also thinking as you're recommending pieces of furniture and layouts to us, I know that you've thought about what codes are. I don't want you to just give me something because it's pretty. We also appreciate that you guys are the experts. We know a lot, and I personally am very much a furniture nerd, and I love to get in and design it. But at the end of the day, you guys are the ones that are in it all day long. You're the ones that will know that this new chair just popped up, or, that the pricing is good, or the lead times are bad, or here's what, 10 of your other clients are doing, with these particular types of furniture. So I know I feel like maybe I'm taking a little bit of your soapbox here, but I feel passionate about it too, because on our side, we rely on our furniture dealer partners to be partners, and to challenge us too. Okay, why that table is not going to work, or these workstations might be better for what your intent is. I'm good with that. In fact, I would encourage that. And if you're not challenging me, you're not really doing your job. You're not being the expert. So then talk to me about how that struggle is, a little bit more about what you as CI group, how you strategize your relationships with not just, interior designers, architects, and trying to grow that side of the relationship, but just in general, what are some of those challenges, and how are you overcoming them, and, how can we all be better advocates, of this partnership to make this project stronger?
Yeah. And that's bottom line. It's being able to collaborate, right? To have a successful project, because at the end, we all want the same thing. We all want to be successful and provide the right solutions for the clients. Right. You are correct. And for the longest time in our industry, interior design, when you're in a studio, that's what we all think when we're going to school and getting our NCIDQ certification. That's what an interior design is. Right. We don't think that there's other ways of also being an interior designer, and one of them is in contract furniture. Yeah. You guys are the experts of the space itself, and making sure that the finishes and the spaces, the space planning, all of that works for the client. The contract furniture interior designers are the experts in the furniture itself, how that furniture, how your design can be translated to the furniture and provide the same solutions for the client. Yeah. So our two different branches of design, but that work together and should work together. When you bring in the contract furniture partners to your beginning stages of the project with your clients, that is giving you more information ahead of time to make less mistakes or come up with other solutions that normally we wouldn't think of. Yeah. And
can be more proactive.
Right. Shorter in the time, less revisions, less back and forth. When your team is hearing what the client wants, thinking of the things that you work on day in, day out, the contract furniture side is also thinking of that side. And then when you collaborate together, things move, faster and in a better way. But it's, for the longest time, it has been seen like, they're designers or decorators, even, called.
Or whatever that stigma is.
And which it's ridiculous at the end of the day,
Agreed.
It's everyone is doing a part of the overall. But when you have collaboration with the A&D side and the contract furniture, that's where you make magic, right? That's where you all can collaborate, you all can work together, we all can find solutions. But it's a struggle. It's still a struggle. Furniture becomes like an afterthought in the process. Yeah. And by the time the furniture then comes in, budgets have been cut, things have changed, and then you're just getting bare minimum of the huge potential that you could have. Right. With furniture, your company culture can be translated into the furniture. The providing the right tools for your employees to succeed and be better at what they do, to foster collaboration and communication, to give them that sense of belonging. That is one of the key things that I see that are changing in the interior design environment, where bringing people, I hate saying bringing people back to work, because people didn't stop working.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. We just found new ways, right? Bringing them back together. But how furniture can bring people back together, using that as a tool to not only represent who you are as a company, but also to do the things that you need for your team to collaborate and learn from each other.
And furniture, just like technology, can make or break a space.
Absolutely.
Can either support and foster, the goals of the culture and of, the executive team, or, it can really, send it into the next level. It can take it, to where it really needs to go. And that is exactly one of the biggest reasons why I think it's so important to have that partnership. And early on, we're huge proponents of, when we're talking about budget in the beginning, we are talking about furniture budget immediately. Here's what you need to think about, because you're right. If we wait, it's going to be, whatever's left over. If we're talking about ahead of time, there could be crossover in solutions, it could be a furniture solution, maybe there's demountable walls or, there's some things that maybe can offset some of the construction costs. Like there's all these different ways to look at it. And if we don't have an expert like you at the table to talk about it in the beginning, then you're just going to, you're going to stray from that.
Right.
And it's not going to be the maximum potential that it could be. So I completely agree with that. And I think it's important for end users to know and executive teams to know that typically you're not going to charge to come in to just consult. And the same with us. If it's a startup meeting, you just need to, let's just go and talk about the process and, and kind of get things going. That is part of our process. That is part of what we do and what we offer. And so the earlier that we can get the whole team, including the contract furniture, to the table, the better. Every time.
Yes, absolutely.
So you started to touch on a little bit, kind of what you're seeing more and more of. And so what are the furniture, and I'm not going to use the T word because I don't believe that trends are what, propel us forward, but I do believe that there's data that shows what's happening, what companies are buying. And you would have the, the closest, kind of finger on the pulse to see what's working, because you're seeing them buy it, and then you're going to see them, did they purchase it and keep it? Are they changing it, in 6 months? So what are some things that you're seeing like companies are focusing on, and how is furniture, supporting that? How is it, playing that key role in executing those visions?
Yeah. I think there's a big shift to more active-based workspaces, not work-dedicated workspaces. So ancillary furniture is taking precedence and a leading role over workstations, over private offices, desks, and things like that, where people then are doing hands down, head down work. It's more about bringing people together, having ancillary furniture, where right now we have 4 generations of work people together in the same space, from baby boomers all the way to whatever this latest is.
And the next one,
generation,
in a couple of years.
Y, Z, millennials, and everyone in between.
Yeah.
And furniture needs to be able to talk to each one and provide the right tools for people to then work in their own way.
So variety,
diversity.
Options.
It needs to offer lounge seating for people that just work in their laptops and just want to, fold their legs and have their laptop and have headphones and just working, to higher tops where a group is getting together and they're brainstorming things with, glass boards and different other materials and items. So it is really more about the individuality of your team and each of your employees, but also how you bring them together.
Right.
So it's that combination of providing a little bit for everyone in a more open environment and less individual environments.
Yeah, we are definitely seeing that too. And I think that that diversity of space, and the certain level of flexibility too. I'm sure you're saying, well, how can I change this in 6 months? Or is this easily movable? How can my team actually have their hands on how they use the space and being able to modify it a little bit, having the technology that supports, that furniture. And I love that you touch on, and for those that don't know, ancillary is all of the furniture that you're not thinking of that is actually in your home. You know, it's the lounge pieces, it's, you know, the bar top, it's all of those alternative spaces that we're working. And especially during, you know, the past few years when everybody, you know, kind of had to make that pivot to go home. Well, now I'm kind of used to being able to work at my, you know, kitchen counter in the morning and have my coffee. And then I go, you know, to my desk in the afternoon. And by the evening, I'm sitting on my couch. Those are natural rhythms that we're seeing, right? And we have to be able to provide those in the workspace too.
Yes. And that's where you see the companies that are being successful right now in re-energizing their spaces are doing. The one size fits all office space where you had 30 cubicles, 10 private offices, the copy room and the break room, that doesn't work. That really, you're going to have people there. Because you're forcing them to be there in some way, but they're not going to be providing, you know, they're not going to be energized and be able to actually feel that they belong and are part of it. Just breaking those spaces, and the break room should no longer be a break room. It should be the cafe mentality where you can hang out and catch up with your coworkers about their life, but also about the project that you're working on at the same time. While having a good coffee and some snacks. So there's, you know, it's that breaking the norm of how we worked since the 60s. You know, it had not changed. It's crazy
how much it had not changed
until last 5 years, which we accelerated that because we something clicked and said, oh, it's not about having people sitting down in a chair for 8, 9, 10 hours. It's about goals. It's about setting expectations, meeting them, communicating effectively, and people feeling that they belong. That's the key for success right now.
Belong, and that they're making a contribution. Right? I think that's a huge part of it is, you know, people also need to have the responsibility. I mean, they have to be accountable for their work. I know it's a lot harder on managers. You know, it's a whole nother topic, you know, upscaling managers to be able to handle the new way of hybrid work, or, you know, just working. And I know hybrid gets a bad rap too, you know, but the reality is hybrid it's been around for 20 years. Let's face it.
It's not new.
It's not new at all. And companies just are finding ways to, you know, incorporate it more, to, you know, to get that inclusion, you know, between offsite and onsite people, and then coming up with reasons why they want you to come back, right? Why are our clients having their people come back? And I think as long as they're giving them reasons and giving them the tools, including furniture, you know, and the supportive furniture they need, is really what is going to make an employee feel like they've been heard, you know, they belong. Also, are you open to feedback, you know, to hear, hey, this new furniture is not working. How can we modify it? And you guys are always glad to jump in and help, you know, change that, you know, let us look at it again, or, you know, so I think that, and again, that's where the expertise comes in the furniture side of it, because now you have, you know, a whole group of other clients that have maybe been through the same exact challenge. And you can jump in and, you know, and give some alternatives. So I love that. And you know, we talked about, you know, kind of some funny things too. You know, things that people should just not be doing anymore, or not purchasing anymore just to purchase it, you know. And I think the example was keyboard trays. Now I remember when, you know, they would order hundreds of keyboard trays for every single new workstation. And we always used to say, don't just get in, see who needs them, order 10, start there, you know, instead of having all of these. And not that, you know, we're going to take away, you know, the sales, but let's face it, there's things that are probably more valuable they could have been spending their money on that would have bought another, you know, couple lounge areas that they will actually use. So are you seeing any other things that people are just kind of defaulting to because it feels safe, or they feel like we still need it, you know? I don't know. Is it, you know, is it filing? Is it, you know, there's some things that,
that's
you know,
exactly where I was going to go.
Not buying it unless you actually need it. It doesn't have to be part of it. So you tell me, what do you?
That's exactly what I was going to go to. It's actually storage, the type of storage. And a lot of it is filing, you know. I think if you tell anyone in our nation right now, draw me a desk, they're going to do a rectangle. That's about it, right? Absolutely. And what a desk should have, everyone thinks of the 2 drawers for the files and the box file, right? The two smaller drawers and a bigger drawer.
You got head on this side, pedestal on that side, desk in the middle.
Right? Yes. So for the longest time, we had the overhead. Those have come and go, and depending on the function, you need them or not. So people are not thinking about those. But the filing part, and with technology nowadays, and using less paper, and again, depending on your company and how people work, but for the most part, you probably need less storage than what you will think.
Yes.
And also thinking about technology itself and how technology can be integrated with the furniture.
Yeah.
You don't have to drill core drills every single time because there's now technology, wireless technology, where you can bring the power next to where you're working.
Yeah.
So having, thinking of those kind of tools and possibilities now opens it up, right, to rethinking your space and how people work. But I always go back to, it's all about culture. It's all about who your people are and what your people need. Mm-hmm. So I think that if business owners, when they're thinking of their space, they actually started with asking their people what they need. And starting from there, and also thinking, how can my space reflect who we are? Then you're opening the possibilities for rethinking how your space is working right now.
What's the message you're sending out by the furniture decisions that you're making? Are you saying it's okay to have these different setups? Are you saying, no, you come in, you have to go to a desk? And what are you saying to your culture and to your people? I think, that's really important to think about.
Yeah. And I've seen a lot of talking about other things, like going to the extremes of having things. When we were talking about keyboards, there's a big trend for ergonomics and having height adjustability. Mm-hmm. And it's absolutely great. I think everyone should have it. But there was a moment where people then were going to we're all going to have height adjustable. And not everyone works that way.
I agreed.
So you then have
keyboard tray, isn't it?
Exactly, yes. So then you have a bunch of height adjustable desks that are always in the sitting position, and then you have another group. So if you had worked with your team of knowing how they work, and they're in what they need, then you probably would have spent that money in other areas that could enhance also the collaboration.
I totally agree with that. And I think that's that cool collaboration between the designer and the dealer. Yes. Here's what we want from a concept. And here's, we've probably already done, like we do heavy duty, programming. We've already looked in everybody's drawers. We've already determined that they don't need all of this. So, then we can work as a team to kind of almost talk them off the ledge sometimes. Hey, instead of just pulling the trigger on those 30 pedestal files that you want for those 30 offices or the height adjustability, let's talk about how people are actually using, their offices, and whether you can get, occupancy sensors or tags or, however you're collecting that data. Maybe it's just some observation over a couple of weeks. I completely agree. And, even in an office of, 12, we have a smallish studio, a little powerhouse there. But can I tell you the percentage of people that actually use their height adjustable desk in that office? Right. And I'm the biggest one to do it, and I'm not even there all the time. So I'm at home at my height adjustable desk at home too, But I think that's really important to talk about, how do we have these conversations when a client says, I'm over budget? Mm-hmm. Let's take a beat. And let's not just blanketly start cutting things. Let's talk about what you're buying, and is it really what you need? Yes. And I think there's just such a trigger, like a reactive, to say, well, I need this. Mm-hmm. I need 10 office suites. I need 50 workstations, and whatever that looks like. Also let's think about the neighborhood setups. Let's think about how we group those together. And you're right. There's a lot of folks that we're finding, no, they just want desks because they want to encourage you to go take your laptop to the high top, where you can kind of have quote unquote office hours, where you're available to talk in between the things you're doing. There's so many, cultural cues that we can infuse with furniture. Correct. Right? And I know that you're very well aware of that. And so again, I think that's the important part of us, collaborating in that way. And, instead of just saying, I want this high top area, let's talk about what that really means. And let's create, a way that it can either be a little bit flexible,
Yeah.
or that we really dial into this is exactly what we do every day. We have a stand-up every day. Well, then where's your stand-up table? Let's get it.
Right. Yeah.
So I love
Yeah.
that.
And even in the process, because I know it can be difficult to have change, right? And change the way that people think of how they work. But if the contract furniture dealership and the A&D are working together from the beginning, that's where mock-ups can come up.
Yes.
And then the clients can actually see it, because we think of 3D and floor plans in our mind and we can see the space. But the normal clients that we have, they don't.
Yeah.
They are thinking the way that they are working and the way that they see things. So by providing mock-ups, I think also helps tremendously.
Yeah.
And actually the buy-in of the people for the change.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that used to be such a thing seemingly of the past. You know, we would have, multiple vendors come in and all do a mock-up. I think the days of that is gone, but I feel like you're kind of hitting the nail on the head here to say the mock-ups are really more for us to try out now, right? Creating, these pilot spaces, where we can test and fail quickly, move on, let's figure out what that looks like. So I'm really glad that we touched on that, because I think, people might not be tracking that that's still an option, and there's all different ways to do it, right? Yeah. It's something that you purchase, it's something that you loan. It depends on what it is, and how customized you need it to be for your own company. But I will say, and, just an experience in seeing a lot of, even larger clients go through this, where they buy a whole bunch of furniture without doing that. And while it may seem expensive to do a mock-up space, even a few hundred square feet worth of it, it is absolutely absorbed by the time you start ordering the furniture, and then make a mistake in across 100 people versus one mock-up space ahead of time to kind of nip that in the bud, right, is going to be a huge difference in your cost. And so I think it's an investment that's worthwhile on the front end. And, I think that's really an important thing to talk about with the clients. And I'm sure you also, are doing a lot of fly-throughs, a lot of, so a lot of that's come a lot further. Yes. But the reality is you can look at 3D all day long and walk through it virtually, but until you sit at it, work at it, touch and feel and experience the space, have somebody sitting next to you, you're not really going to understand what that feels like. And that could, that could easily make your decision, for what you feel like and how your people react to it too. Right. Because we don't want to just say, well, what do you need? Because they're going to go, well, I need a desk and 2 file cabinets. What do you do? What do you need to get your job done? Don't prescribe the furniture. We'll do that, but, tell me what kind of tools you need, and we'll craft something, that comes into that. And then you guys can get in there, and really be advocates for, what's the right manufacturer, what's the right line, what fits that bill, what fits that description and that, that end goal that they need. So, I could talk about this all day. I know. Because I just get kind of fired up about it. As important as architecture and design is, for people and their spaces, the furniture is what will drive it home, or will drive them home. I mean, quite frankly, that's where people are sitting and using day in, day out. It's what they are touching every single day. Yeah. And technology has taken us to huge advancements in the last couple of years, but at the end of the day, it's about the people. Yeah, it's still that human connection. Absolutely. And by touching, feeling, they also, in that process, they also buy in, and they also feel that they're part of the decision making, which helps you as well as for the transition. The buy-in, and that creates those, those champions, versus just adapters. They can become champions, because you can have the most beautiful space on the planet, and if that person isn't comfortable at their desk or wherever they're sitting, it doesn't matter. No, it doesn't matter at all. Unfortunately, they're not going to see anything else that's happening. Well, I think, I was going to ask about, where you think furniture is heading. We've talked a little bit about it, but is there anything else that you can think of that, is like, here's something we're really seeing a lot happening right now? And again, I'm not talking about trends. I'm talking about people are saying, this is really working for me, and obviously every industry and every company is going to have a different solution, but are there some common threads that you're seeing that are really coming out as some success stories for people to feel like their employees are coming back and being more engaged, because of some furniture decisions they're making? And And then maybe how that parlays into some, if you were to make one workplace change, what would that be?
So there's definitely, hate the word trend as well. There's definitely things that are happening that you're seeing that people are being more successful than others. And I think we talked about it a little bit before, where the cafe area or the break room has become more of a cafe, right?
It's that third place now.
It
right?
is that
Within
third
the
place.
office,
It's that, yes, it's that location where people are going to reconnect and re-energize. We've seen people do things like, game areas, all wellness areas, which are all great, but those can fade, right? Those can come and go, and some people can use it for a little bit, and then it's a dead corner.
Yeah.
So flexibility. Flexibility is definitely key, and being able to do that with more ancillary furniture. So the key right now to succeed is pushing out more of those individual workspaces, less of those, more of the open collaboration areas. And you can add phone rooms or enclosed meeting rooms that are not necessarily construction. You can do that with furniture now and technology, which then allows you to then be able to be more flexible with the space.
The key is flexibility.
Technology is changing so much and so fast that there's a lot of people talking with ideas of what's going to happen. Nobody knows. No. Nobody knows.
Hopefully, we don't have a crystal ball.
AI right now could do so many things, and it's endless, the possibilities of things that can happen, which is going to affect how we work and our spaces. So being able to have strategic foresight of thinking what you need, but also thinking in 5-10 years what your company should be, or do you want to be, and then think that way of how the space can help.
Kind of back into what would support that progression.
Yes,
right?
Yes, correct. So that is more, instead of seeing a trend, it's more of the individual needs of your organization. For me, gone are the days of we're doing a lawyer's office. We're not thinking what we're doing, right? Because it was very cookie cutter the entire time, forever and ever. That's down the drain. That shouldn't be. Yes.
I mean, finally, for attorneys, for Pete's sake,
it's
they're
breaking
the longest term adopters, to that. But
and breaking those hierarchy of spaces too, by breaking those corner offices and big conference rooms, and then the workstations right at the back without any natural light and things like that. That stops. The successful clients have been the ones that are not thinking that way and are thinking of the holistic way and the overall of how people work and communicate and collaborate. We had a client a few years ago, a big community bank, local community bank. They had, I think it was at the time, like around 400 employees. They were doing their headquarters, and they wanted each and every single employee to be able to choose parts of their work area. Nobody wanted to do it. We decided to, we're going to work with you. And it was the longest process in the world. We created the basic kits, and then we gave them options of different things, from accessories to the lighting to the height adjustability, some storage, and even sliding doors or open. And everyone chose. We created this crazy Excel sheets with everyone and everything on the clicks and everything. But their engagement went through the roof after. All their employees wanted to be there. Everyone felt so happy. And then we found ways of these are your biggest ones that people use. So we just shrank it to those. So the top 5 or 6. And that was extremely successful for them. They changed the way that they work. They changed the way that they communicated. And also everyone bought in from day one. So it was a lot of work from the beginning, but it has been a client of ours for several years now, and we're constantly changing things in the space through those kits that we created.
But it's a controlled kit apart.
It is a controlled kit apart.
So that you can change it like that. Now that piece can go to this person if they've gone.
So you had a cluster of 6 workstations, and now you need a brainstorming area. You can easily take the middle ones and have then workstations in the end, and that area becomes brainstorm. And it's just taking a few kit of parts out, storing them, and then moving them and using them in another place.
I love that.
So flexibility.
I don't get into the weeds a lot, but I can get into the weeds on something like that. And figuring out, okay, in this module of 12 by 12, what are the 50 different ways that we can do that, and trying to future-proof the technology. Like a lot of it's gone wireless, but, there's still opportunities, for power and core drilling for now.
Yeah.
So how do we make that space, like you're saying, kind of plug and play? And it is so worth it on the front end. And I'm glad to hear, an actual, testimony to say, years now, it's still working for them. It has been, an uptick in engagement, and I wouldn't say that every company needs to do that to go to that level.
No, absolutely not.
But I think what you touched on is super important, which is, the involvement of, the employees in the decision making, even if they don't get to pick their own.
Right.
As long as they're just consulted, and we've done that with a lot of clients. We did that with Sam's Club in Bentonville. We had to kind of come up with a standard with a couple variations, but the key was to bring everybody through at the end and say, we heard you. We heard you say this is what you need, and this may look different, but it's going to accomplish the the task or the goal that you had in mind, and the light bulbs go off.
Right.
And you get the buy-in that you need because they think, well, you heard me. I mean, that's literally the basis of all of this human connection, right? Is I was heard and I was seen.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be this big, enormous, event. It's just a simple acknowledgement in way of saying, yep, I heard you. And here's what we did for you, to solve that, and there might be some compromises, but we really, did the best that we could to make you successful.
Yes.
And like you said, the engagement can go crazy after that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So
and that's the way also that I go into the business side too, of being able to lead our company. It's an open revolving door in my office of, I want to hear from everyone. I want to hear what's good and what's not good, because nobody's perfect and no company's perfect. So, but being able to hear the things that are working and not working, not only in the furniture but in the business itself, it enhances the culture of your company. It shuts down people leaving because they're not feeling part of, and they don't understand what they do is important, or leave just because of external things that you should have known, but you are too busy leading and running and doing business that you're not able to take the time to do that. So
or you don't feel approachable.
Or you don't feel approachable,
which again can be all part of the design and the furniture is how approachable do you feel? Are you in that, like you mentioned, are you in that corner, palace office, or are you out, in the space, or however, you're handling that, or what teams are available to you at all times, that are making you feel like you do have somewhere, to go and talk to. So that was kind of the story that I was going to ask you for anyway. So good job getting ahead on that one. But I was going to ask you as we wrap up, is there anything super surprising industry-wide that you've seen as of late, good or bad, that you just thought, I didn't think it was going to go that way, or wow, this is something that, we weren't even talking about, a few years ago. And here we are, and this is, a central part of the design. Do you have anything that's been surprising like that?
Surprising. Feel like in our industry, surprise is like day-to-day thing, right? The change is constant, and evolution it doesn't stop. I've been working or doing a lot of work with IIDA, the International Interior Design Association, has been really good because I'm being able to connect with design leaders from all across the nation, actually international as well. I was part of a industry roundtable at the beginning of the year in Chicago, and they were talking about the power of design to bring joy back. And I think that for me, that has been the most surprising. It's in a time where we feel that we are divided and we can't ask or talk about certain things. Being able to see that the design community is doing the opposite, is actually concentrating on community, concentrating on strong diversity of minds and thoughts and ideas, and going back to the basic of everything, which is joy itself, and how joy can be translated into interior design. Joy can be translated into furniture. Joy can be translated into the day-to-day work. That has been the positive surprise that I've seen lately, stronger than ever. And see people, you've had a few of those as your guests here in your podcast, seeing people that are writing children's books to show what we do and who we are, and as an option for kids and their future. That never existed when I was growing up. So seeing those types of changes and pushing the message out of how important it is, how interior design brings soul to a space, how we can bring spaces alive, and for the success of people. It's basically the yes and the why and the happy and the passion for moving forward.
The passion and everything. No, I agree. And I think, and as AI is bigger, and we still need to have that connection. And I think that is an issue, and that's a downside of what a lot of people don't talk about is the uptick in depression and suicide, and things like you said, things people don't want to talk about. But let's face it, a lot of that is because we lack community, we lack social interaction. But when people think, oh God, that means I got to go back to that awful office I left in 2020.
Right.
I don't blame them.
Right.
Honestly, you can't go back to the same.
Right.
Because
everything
has changed. Everything has changed. We were already changing.
Right.
That, like you said, that was an accelerator. So we need to be talking about, what can we bring to give you joy? And I think Dr. Tracy Brown talked about it, in her happiness book. And it's like, it's not necessarily just give me stuff, give me food. It's not all about the snacks on the table, or like you said, the games in the corner. That means nothing if you're not feeling fulfilled. Because as a person, most people want to feel like they are fulfilling, some kind of purpose, whether it's just to do a good job of what they're doing, or to be a good teammate and to help their coworkers. It is bringing joy back. And I love that. And I love that IDEA is championing that, because why should we settle for, just a good space? And I'm the first one to be like, well, they can always be better, but it's a space that actually brings joy. I have clients, years ago that said, I want my people to leave here in better condition than when they came in. And we have the power to do that.
Exactly.
And why we're not, I don't know. Maybe because it feels weird or hard, or it feels too soft and fluffy. I don't know. But let's face it, like, we had to do this all the time. We work, we want to find a place where we belong. We feel like we're making a difference.
Right.
And we feel like we are fulfilled, and I heard recently, I was listening to a podcast, and anyway, it was just a simple thing. He said, well, we're designing performative spaces. And I thought, oh, hang on a second. Yeah. We use the word functional all the time, right? In our heads, we're thinking beyond function. We're thinking, this is awesome. It's performative. But I think we need to think about changing that vocabulary to our clients and to other people that are having that conversation, to clarify that we're not just here just to make it functional. Starbucks is functional for getting a lot of people's jobs done, or other spaces. What's performative is what's bringing that joy that you're talking about, because that goes beyond just giving you, the bare minimum of what you need, but giving you what will take you beyond. And ultimately take the company beyond, because if you're providing a space to have joy, if you're giving if you're offering a place to be fulfilled, then everything else is just going to improve. In your productivity and all. So I think those are really good points. And you don't think that has to do with furniture, but it does. It does. And it makes a big deal about how you feel, and how you function, and how you move around that space. Yeah.
When you look at the latest Gallup polls of employee engagement in the United States, it's only 30%. there's so much more to gain. We've been tracking our employee engagement at CA Group for the last 7 years, and we started around 72%, something like that. And now for the past 5 years, we've been between 88 and 93%, which
that's phenomenal.
Translates to people feeling great about what they do and doing a great job.
Yeah.
And I love calling them now masters of complexity because they've cracked the code on how to do the great things in a project from beginning to end and make it easier for our partners in the A&D, for our clients at the end. And it's all because of the people. At the end of the day, it comes from them.
Without the people, what are we even designing for?
What are we doing?
What are we doing? We're not doing this just for our own edification,
right.
you know. So is there one last nugget or piece of advice that you would give, if you could sit down with a board of directors, let's talk about the executive team, because they're not always tuned in, and rightfully so. I mean, they are big picture. They are, they're dealing with a lot more than most people know. So if you were to say one little piece of advice about furniture or about, the workplace, and how that furniture integrates into that, what would you tell them? What would you tell them to think about?
One size does not fit all. It should be as simple as that. They don't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
It's making sure that we can show that by doing extra steps at the beginning, is going to have a return on investment at the end for them. Yes. And it's not only a return on investment in people, but it's also money-wise, because if people are happy, people are going to take care of your clients and do the work that you need to for them to do in order to be successful. So doing a little bit of work ahead of time, thinking of the space, not as what I need to give them so they can work, but as what I need to do for the space to inspire them to do the best and be the best that they can be. Changing that mindset will give a successful project and at the end a successful company.
That's huge. You said it. Mic drop. No, this was great. A really good conversation. I hope there are people that that get something out of this. That maybe aren't so scared of the furniture anymore, or the process, or just know that there's resources out there to help, and that we really truly are trying to make better spaces for people.
Yes.
And we are here to create a place where we can thrive, all of us. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And I look forward to, doing some more projects together.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Hey guys, thanks for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Gilbert. I hope that you also leave us a like and a share, and let us know how you are implementing any of our ideas into creating a place where you can live, work, and thrive too. See you next time.